Imagine living in Europe at the end of the 18th century. There's no Google Maps, no European Union, and no clearly defined borders like we have today. Instead, you're in the middle of a continent shattered into hundreds of fragmented territories, where power is splintered, monarchs rule by divine right, and war is spoken more fluently than diplomacy. This was a world that hadn't yet heard the name Napoleon Bonaparte. And yet, it was this chaos on the map that became fertile ground for a genius to rise, reshape Europe, and leave a legacy that still echoes today. If you've ever wondered how Napoleon rose so quickly, how he managed to defeat a string of decaying empires, and how he rewrote the map of Europe in just 2 decades, the answer starts in a place you may not expect, the map that existed before he appeared. This isn't just about geography, it's about power, it's about ideology, and it's the starting point for a chain reaction of irreversible historical events. Let's open the map of Europe in 1789, the year the French Revolution began, and the world first sensed that the old order was beginning to crumble. At the center of the map stood a grand-sounding name, the Holy Roman Empire. But don't let the name fool you. It wasn't an empire, it wasn't holy, and it had nothing to do with ancient Rome. It was a loose collection of over 300 states, principalities, free cities, and feudal territories, all under the symbolic authority of the Holy Roman Emperor, at the time, Leopold II of the Habsburg dynasty. But this empire operated like a bloated, ineffective machine. Real power was scattered. There was no unified army, no centralized financial system, and no law could be passed without consensus from hundreds of nobles. It was an aging empire clinging to the glow of a forgotten past. To the north was Prussia, an emerging military powerhouse with the most disciplined army in Europe. Under Frederick the Great, Prussia had become a formidable force, but its intense focus on military and administrative structure came at the cost of internal flexibility, leaving it too rigid to politically lead the continent. To the east loomed the vast and intimidating Russian Empire. Under Catherine the Great, Russia was a beast awakening. It had already swallowed up parts of Poland and was eyeing the Ottomans, the Baltics, and the Balkans. But it was also internally divided, with a westernized aristocracy and a peasant class still trapped in medieval-style serfdom. Heading south, we reach the Italian peninsula, not a unified nation, but a political patchwork. Here lay the Kingdom of Naples, the Papal States, the Grand Duchy of Tuscany, the Republic of Venice, Sardinia, all independent, each with its own army, taxes, and laws. Italy had no concept of national unity at the time. It was a rich playground for imperial interference, an open battlefield for military and diplomatic ambitions. To the west, we find France, a great power on the edge of collapse. On paper, it was mighty, but beneath the surface, it was rotting. An outdated feudal system, an extravagant aristocracy, and a burdened peasantry and middle class struggling under crushing taxes. The Bourbon dynasty, led by King Louis XVI, was desperately trying to hold on to power through outdated policies. It was a pressure cooker ready to explode, and the French Revolution would be the spark that lit the fuse. Farther southwest, we find Spain, once a global empire with colonies across the Americas and Asia. But by the late 18th century, Spain was a tired nation. Its army was weak, its economy reliant on colonial gold and silver, and its government plagued by confusion and conservatism. Portugal, too, offered little contrast. A small country barely surviving between two giants, with no meaningful role left on the European power board. So as you can see, before Napoleon arrived, Europe was a tangled mess of outdated systems, fragmentation, local wars, and fragile alliances. And the fascinating thing is, this very chaos created the opportunity for someone like Napoleon to rise. He wasn't just a general, he was someone who understood the flaws of the old world and used them to bring it down. Napoleon Bonaparte, born in Corsica, an island newly annexed by France, grew up witnessing the injustices and contradictions of the crumbling society. When he joined the army, France was undergoing massive change. The revolution had dismantled the monarchy, but it also left behind a dangerous power vacuum. And Napoleon, with his military brilliance and political instincts, stepped in to fill that void. When he launched his campaigns in Italy, he didn't just strike at military strongholds. He struck at the very idea of a divided Italy. When he attacked Austria and Prussia, he exposed the weaknesses at the core of their power structures. And when he moved into Central Europe, he didn't just bring soldiers, he brought a new ideology, democracy, individual rights, and a revolutionary concept of the modern state. In just 15 years, Napoleon achieved what no one thought possible. He redrew the map of Europe. He erased hundreds of microstates within the Holy Roman Empire and merged them into more efficient administrative units. He introduced the Napoleonic Code, a civil code that stretched from France to Poland. He replaced decaying national structures with a new system based on order, discipline, and rule of law. But those very changes made him the target of an entire continent. As coalitions of European powers formed to oppose him, they weren't just fighting a conqueror, they were fighting to preserve the old order. They feared revolutionary ideas. They feared the loss of aristocratic privilege. And they feared a world led by merit, not bloodline. A world where their thrones might become meaningless. As you already know, Napoleon was eventually defeated. But what's astonishing is that although he lost on the battlefield, the changes he brought endured. The map of Europe never returned to its former state. Modern nations began to emerge. Italy and Germany would eventually unify. The great empires realized they could no longer rule by divine right alone. Napoleon wasn't just a historical figure. He was a force. And that force could only emerge from a chaotic Europe, where the old map was the clearest evidence of a system in decay. So today, when you look at a modern map of Europe, remember this. There was once a man who dared to look at the old map, toss it aside, and redraw it from scratch. His name was Napoleon Bonaparte. If this story made you see history, or even a map, in a different way, leave a comment below. Share what surprised you most in this video. What do you think of Napoleon? A genius, a conqueror, or a reformer of history? And if you want to continue following our series Decoding Napoleon, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. The battles, the decisions, the turning points, they're all waiting for you. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.